Welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast with Jacob Ayers, providing actionable content to help you along your journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. As the premier asset class, real estate has helped ordinary people just like you amass fortunes. The benefits of passive income from real estate investing will allow you to live a life you want. And now your host, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and apartment deal syndicator, Jacob Ayers.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, episode 31. Today we're going to be discussing luxury house hacking with our guest, Ben Leybovich. Ben was born in Russia and is a career classical violinist. After being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at an early age, Ben had to go to the drawing board and consider other options. This led Ben to search for options to make a living other than music. Ben researched the world of money extensively and came to realize there are three types of income: earned income, passive income, and portfolio income. You see, Ben didn't only need passive income, but he had to have it. Ben is the author of House Hacking, the only real estate investing strategy you need to build wealth, live for free or almost free, and make money through home ownership. Today I welcome on the show Ben. Ben, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Jake. Thank you for inviting.
Certainly, we're excited to have you on. So Ben, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started investing in real estate?
I got started. I'm a classically trained fiddle player, but I was diagnosed with a medical condition called multiple sclerosis when I was in college. That basically meant that it would probably have been, well, according to the doctors, it would have been stupid. Those are verbatim. Don't be stupid. Don't try to get up on stage and play your violin because you never know when your hands are going to stop working. So that meant I needed to focus on some kind of developing some kind of capacity to earn an income without my daily being present to it and you know, punching the clock kind of thing. And so through a lot of study and a lot of kind of talking to a lot of people, real estate became one of the more probably viable options for me. So I haven't looked back since. Well, I've looked back. I do a bunch of other things now, obviously, but that's why I came to real estate, and that's why I'm still in this.
Yeah, oftentimes people kind of end up accidentally in real estate, maybe inherit a property or stumble into it, or, you know, maybe just want to manage one property. And you actually took a premeditated approach and a very direct approach, thought out, and, you know, because you needed this passive income. So that's a little bit unique, and, you know, here we are. So what are you working on these days, and what does your real estate look like for you?
Well, I have a portfolio in Ohio. I make money on the internet. I do a bunch of different things. You know, I write books. I sell books. I sell courses. One course, I should say, teach people how to do what I did. But yeah, I mean, it's you have to have some real estate because otherwise you end up paying too much of a tax burden on everything else you make.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to have enough, and you have to have enough to kind of. It's the most stable income I have. I mean, real estate is real estate. It's the most stable income I have. You know, so you have to have some, but then on top of it, you can either become in business of real estate investing, which means, you know, you continue buying, facilitating deals and this and that and the other, or, you know, you can be an investor. You can have enough to fulfill a purpose, and then you can go do whatever, you know, makes your heart sing. And I do a bunch of different things.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking about house hacking, and it's an awesome strategy. It's great for beginners or people that are living in tough markets to invest in, and you have some experience with it. So can you tell us a little bit about house hacking and start off by telling us what exactly is house hacking?
So house hacking, I have a friend. His name is Brandon Turner. He's a good friend. And he likes to take credit for inventing the name house hacking. I don't know if he actually did or didn't, but I just published a book on it, and I gave him credit in the book, so I might as well give him credit here. House hacking in principle, here are the challenges of real estate investing. Financing real estate, managing real estate are the two probably greatest barriers to entry in the world of investment-grade real estate.
No doubt.
House hacking is a strategy that combines that, which is your primary residence. In other words, you're going to move into it, with that, which is an investment. So because of the function of you being a primary resident in this property, you qualify for the best possible financing options that you can get out there. And because this property is going to be geared right there on location, easy to manage, touch and feel, it's going to be geared as an investment property at the same time, it's likely the easiest way to manage an investment piece of real estate.
Right.
And so house hacking, it kind of, the traditional sense of it, of course, my approach is completely different, as you know, but in traditional sense, house hacking is a way to kind of combine that which is investment with that which is a primary residence, which most people think requires a lot of compression of your lifestyle. It requires you to kind of compromise on a lot of aspects, like somebody's living next door to you in a duplex and you have to listen to their stuff behind the door all the time, or somebody's living upstairs in the apartment upstairs in a duplex, and then, they bang your ceiling every time the water doesn't get hot enough or something. So it's okay. Or, I have a lot of students who actually just, buy a 4-bedroom house, rent out a couple of bedrooms, and there you go, right? I'm working with one of them right now to find them a property here. But, what I do is I take that several steps further. I've discovered a certain synergy of ideals that we can achieve with house hacking, whereby you can actually improve your quality of life. Forget compromising. Forget kind of making yourself uncomfortable for the greater benefit. Instead, what I've discovered is that you can get more. You can get a better location, a better property, better quality of life, and yet it can cost you less than what people think of as traditional house hacking. And that's the exciting piece of it, is that you can actually, as Cardone likes to say, 10x your life. You can really do, I've literally done this. The reason I'm talking about this now is I'm excited about this now because I'm doing it now. I'm doing it in real time. And if you want to know why, how it happened that I'm actually doing this, we can talk about this. But
yeah, absolutely. Let's dive deeper into that and talk about what kind of quality of life you're exactly talking about, because it sounds like you're talking about maybe moving into a house that maybe you couldn't afford without said roommates.
Sure.
So what does that look like for you?
So we relocated from Ohio just under a year ago, Jacob, and we had a house in Ohio. We sold it. We relocated here, and as a personal kind of challenge for myself, I wanted to figure out our living arrangements in Chandler, Arizona, which is Phoenix MSA, which, by the way, for 2 years is the fastest growing MSA in the entire country, at basically at around 2% population growth per year. So with appreciation of property to boot, okay? So we landed here, and here I am with this notion that I am going to be able to figure out my living arrangements for the same cost or less than what I had in Ohio, except I am now living in one of the most diverse and one of the hottest, frankly, metropolitan statistical areas in the country. So how do you go about doing that? Well, we rented an apartment when we came in. And I have a different perspective from most on rent. A lot of these financial gurus will tell you renting is stupid because you're throwing your money away. Here's the thing. If you have the money, it buys you a lot of flexibility. You are unattached. In order to say, I'm done here, I want to go there now, you don't have to sell a house. You don't have to fix it up in order to put it on the market. All you got to do is give them 30-day notice, whatever, 60-day notice, and you're gone, okay? So I see renting as a very kind of appropriate strategy for people that have earned it, people that have plenty of passive cash flow, people that have plenty of assets on their balance sheet, and they don't need to necessarily do everything in their life to keep building. They're done. And so now what they're buying is their freedom. 3 months over here, 6 months over there, traveling, that kind of thing. Renting is fantastic for that purpose. However, most of your listeners haven't earned the right to trade that much money for flexibility, for freedom. You have to earn it. And most people haven't earned. I haven't earned it. So we rented a very nice apartment when we first came to Arizona. But I knew we weren't going to be staying there because while it brought us a lot of flexibility and great location and every kind of amenity you can imagine, I just didn't feel, my wife and I didn't feel like we have the right to be spending this much money for nothing but our freedom. We just felt we haven't earned it. So we had to do something. But it's in my DNA. Let me start with the fact that I can afford the mortgage without the house hack. Okay, that wasn't it.
Right.
But it's in my DNA to, as much as possible, have somebody else pay for my lifestyle. This is the way you get ahead. I mean, the reason you build this cash flow is so that effectively somebody else, this cash flow, which is a function of your clients, be it your tenants or your buyers or whatever business you're in. The reason you're building this business, the reason you're creating this cash flow is to parlay it at the end into your lifestyle. Okay? I don't have W-2 income. I live because I have assets, be it a business or a piece of real estate. Okay? And I am not as big as a lot of my friends, but this is what buys a measure of flexibility. But I haven't earned enough to rent, so I needed to do something. I needed to buy, but it's in my DNA to try to offset that burn, because buying a house, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad says, Robert Kiyosaki, he says buying a house is a liability. Why? Because it costs you money every month, and anything that costs you money every month is basically a liability as far as we're concerned.
Yeah,
but if you flip that on, upside over, you can say, yeah, but if I put a strategy in place which creates income, which offsets that burn of that house, then in essence that house is no longer a liability. So what I've been able to do with this house hacking idea is that I said, okay, I need to generate income. Now the question is how. And of course I looked into every kind of variant of house hack. In the book I define them. Equity house hack, whereby you move into a house. It's basically a live and flip. It functions as a flip. You move into it, you fix it up, you hope to sell it for more. The problem with that is that you have to stay in it for 2 years, because after 24 months your capital gains goes to zero, which is a huge bomb. So theoretically, when you do that kind of I call it equity house hack, you want to stay in the house for 2 years. The problem with 2 years is that's infinity in terms of market dynamics. Who knows what's going to happen in 2 years? Right. And I'm a risk-averse person. This is why I diversify revenue streams and why I pay for those for my life with some type of passive income, because I don't feel like earned income is safe enough to rely on to build your life around.
Yeah, right.
So, and I couldn't get my head wrapped around this idea of, okay, there's equity in this thing, but there's equity today. Who knows what's going to happen 24 months from now when I'm ready to get out of this thing? And if there's no income coming in on a monthly basis, then the only upside, the only thing to offset my burn is that equity on the back end, and who knows what's going to happen. So that wasn't good enough for me. I wasn't okay with that. That's too much risk. So that was a no. I could do something that guys talk about on Bigger Pockets, which is, you buy a cheapy boy in so-so location, a duplex or a triplex. You move in, you compress your life like crazy. You eat your dinners on Formica countertops and carpeted floors, and you do all that. The problem is, I'm at a stage in life where I'm not independently wealthy, but I've worked hard, and I've achieved a certain degree of freedom. I I don't work for anybody. I create money via revenues that I think of and property that I own. And doing that, the traditional version that maybe Brandon did when he was young, or Scott Trench doing because he's young, or, Craig or somebody else in the bigger, that was a big no-no. My wife and I have paid some dues, and we weren't going to scale down. We moved to Arizona out of Ohio to scale up. We've earned kind of the flexibility to be able to be a little more demanding as far as how much we want to get out of life. We wanted to scale up. And so we wanted the granite countertops, and we wanted the travertine showers, and we wanted the tile on the floor. And just, we wanted the pool in the backyard. We wanted 3 grocery stores within 10-minute drive. We wanted the convenience to everything, like everything we didn't have in Ohio, we wanted. And the reason we moved to Arizona is because my kids were accepted into specific school that we wanted them to go to. Well, location-wise, we have to be close enough to the school, period. But this places us in a pretty upscale kind of location, okay? But it fits because that's what we came for. That's what we wanted. Most people start out with, this is how much money I have, so this is the life I can afford. But some people start out with, this is the life I want. Now, how do I pay for it?
Yeah, right.
And that was my point of view. That's kind of always been my point of view. This is the life I want. How do I pay for it? And maybe that's a function of multiple sclerosis, where you go through life and you think you've got the future all planned out. And then this proverbial whoop-ass just kind of opens right over your head, and you realize that all of the planning, all of the things you had under control, or so you thought, mean absolutely squat. And that tomorrow is today. And if you don't make it happen today, tomorrow, it's kind of pointless, right? So having had that experience, this is why, I could save more money. I could buy another property. I could do X, Y, Z. But, it's important to me to have a certain quality of life because I only get one chance at it, okay? As it turns out, there is very distinct, very concrete logic that suggests that actually scaling up, actually being in possession of more desirable assets, even though they seem more expensive at the front end, the function of them being more desirable in the marketplace is what makes it safer to have them in the first place. So having a higher grade, a higher desirability scale asset not only buys my family and myself a much higher quality of life, but actually negates to a great extent a lot of the risk that I would see in the marketplace. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like a few things that you mentioned going back to your perspective on renting as a luxury and owning as a burden. It's a little bit reverse to what most people think. Most people, it pains them to have to pay their monthly rent, and the goal is one day to own a property, the American dream of owning your own home. But yet these people that have that way of thinking also want the flexibility of traveling the world and not being tied to a location. So, their actions don't exactly align with, their goals. And you found a way in house hacking to get the best of both of those worlds. So awesome.
That's exactly it. And if you want to bring it into real day, so it's just like, to bring it into viable and things that people understand, people know. Your audience probably are very familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
They're probably also familiar with a guy named Grant Cardone.
I'm sure.
Who is the modern day kind of version of Robert Kiyosaki. It's funny. This moves so quickly, even though Robert is alive and well and owns a lot of real estate. Grant Cardone is the modern equivalency, right? But they come at it from a totally different standpoint, right? Here's the thing. If you think about Robert Kiyosaki, who says a house is a liability. As we discussed, it's a liability because it costs money. But guess what? So does rent. Rent costs money. And while with a house, you at least have the potential, the option of appreciation, if nothing else, before we even get into any kind of house hack. Some kind of appreciation to keep up with market inflation, price inflation, okay? Rent doesn't even offer you anything. So that's why everybody goes, okay, I got to buy a house. The problem is people don't understand the cost of it, and this is where we talk about Cardone. He understands because he owns a lot of property. I understand because I own property. It costs a lot more than a mortgage to have a house.
Certainly.
Every 5 years, something breaks that's big, and it's going to require thousands of dollars. People don't understand this, right? And so not only does it tie you down to where you have to sell in order to go, but it costs you much, much more than you thought. So you lose the freedom and you lose the money. And that's essentially the problem with a house. So with renting, you have one problem. You lose some money, but you are retaining your freedom. With a house, you lose both. You lose the freedom and you lose the money, and you hope that the appreciation is enough to cover for your loss. Well, I just put those two together, and I said, listen, I don't want to lose either my freedom to live exactly where I want and how I want, or my money. So to have the freedom to live where I want, I just need to go there. I just need to go. I just need to say, hey, listen, Jake, everybody talks about this, and everybody is two-faced, right? On the one hand, people will tell you things like, my job is great. On the other hand, they go home and I freaking hate my job, right? It's like everybody's always two-faced about these things. If you want freedom, you do it, and then you figure out how to pay for it. That's the thing that entrepreneurs understand. It's never a question of, I want XYZ. How do I pay for it? It's I want XYZ. How do I gear it to pay for itself? That's the real question. The reason you buy an apartment building is because it pays for itself and hopefully puts money in your pocket, and the market increases its value over time. The reason you do anything is because it puts money in your pocket. So the same with housing. How do I buy a house so that it's not a liability, so that it pays for itself, and so that it helps me retain my flexibility, my ability to say, hey, I am tired of looking at smokestacks and cornfields. I want to be looking at palm trees and blue skies and sunshine, and I want a pool in the backyard that I can use 10 months out of the year.
Right.
How do I get it to pay? Not how do I pay for it? Because that separates the action of paying for something from that thing itself. The question is not, how do I pay for that lifestyle? The question is, how do I get the lifestyle to pay for itself?
Yeah, and when you can
Okay?
figure that out, you've really reached a new level of thinking and action.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, it's the only way to think, I think. And house hacking, at least my version, what makes my version different is that I go for luxury. I go for the most that I can under the circumstance. I don't try to compress myself. I don't try to say, hey, I can't afford it. I go for what I want. I found a house I wanted. It has particular floor plan, footprint, particular location. I knew exactly, it works. And we can talk about the things, the parameters that make it work and how it makes it work and why. But it pays for itself. Now, it doesn't pay 100% of my stay. But the fact is, I'm staying here for much less than I was staying for in Ohio. But I am here where I want to be. And it's the fact that I bought a more luxurious, better located house that's responsible for that.
Yeah, great. So we've talked about the reasons why and why it's a good idea to house hack and all the benefits. Could we jump into the details of, logistics of house type, location, and
Sure.
things like that? Things that might be
Sure.
beneficial when you're looking at doing this strategy.
Sure. Well, okay, so we can only do so many specifics on the show.
Sure.
I go through a lot of specifics in the book, obviously. But for me, I have two 8-year-old kids. They're twins, boy and a girl. And for me, this kind of idea of somebody being in my space was a big no-no. So from the get-go, I didn't know exactly what it would look like, but I knew that I had to have my privacy. If I was going to have some type of income-generating asset on my premises, it was going to have to be set up in a way that is completely separate from the main living quarters. Okay? So that's the big deterrent for a lot of people. Oh, I just don't know if I would feel safe with blah.
Right.
That's fair enough, but what I teach people is how to avoid that, how to do it right, so you don't have to have that concern. There's always a concern, but you can limit the exposure quite a lot. So that's one concern. And the way that I accomplished it is I found a house which works out a lot better than duplex, actually. A lot better than duplex. It's a house with an attached kind of mother-in-law suite. They call it out here a casita. But it's basically a mother-in-law suite. They have those in Ohio. They have those in Indiana. They have those in Texas. They have those everywhere. Okay? But the house is incredibly well located, okay, in a very desirable kind of location. And it's shaped like a horseshoe, with the main house being in the one side, and in the back, and the garage being kind of like that connecting vertical part, and then in the front is the casita. So the entrance of the casita is separate, and the casita itself is across, a large courtyard, 25, not too large, but 25 feet across.
Right.
Or whatever it is. So it shares a roof, but it's connected to the garage by way of a wall. So we don't hear what's going on there. They don't hear what's going on here, but we can see out of a window. So if anything funky goes on, I know, and it's never happened before. Now, the important piece to understand here is this, and I'm going to get into the woods of real estate investing a little bit here, but most money in real estate, in terms of income-producing real estate, is lost in something we call economic losses. Economic losses are things that are a function of what people do and how people behave that in the end ends up costing you money. So you're evicting somebody because they're not paying you. The court fees and the attorney fees are part of economic loss. Now you get them out and they trashed your unit. Now you have to go in and rip out the carpet, and the carpet is 2 years old. There's nothing wrong with the carpet, but now you have to replace it, and you have to patch up the hole in the wall. And oh, by the way, they took the stove and the copper. Okay, all of that is economic losses. And now that you fixed the place, which took you 3 weeks or whatever it did, now it's vacant. Now you're advertising. Advertising, if it costs you money, that's economic losses. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now it's sitting vacant. Now you're taking applications. Now it's going to take you 2 months to basically re-rent it. And while it's sitting there, somebody has to pay for utilities. And guess what? It's you. And that's economic losses. So basically everybody thinks, and unfortunately everybody is being taught, that real estate is about numbers. Numbers is what we boil things down to, but we start with a story, just like I went through right now. Something happened at your unit. There's a story behind why it's vacant and how it got there and how much it cost you and why, all of those line items. So the real estate starts with a story, and then we boil that story down to numbers just because we communicate with numbers in real estate, okay? Most people want to start with the numbers and extrapolate a story out of that. Well, the numbers, you can stack numbers a million different ways, and you can lie a million different ways. If you know the dynamics of what really happens, Then you apply your wisdom. You're looking at this and you're saying, okay, this is what I think might happen here. And then you elaborate, you boil that down, extrapolating the numbers. Okay? So what happens in rental property, any sort of rental property, is that, of course, you want to deal with people who have something to lose. They have their reputation to lose. They have their credit score to lose. Because they guard those things. Those things are who they are. Those things are important to them. And they are very unlikely to do things that are going to jeopardize what's important to them most. Okay? So what kind of a property are you going to attract somebody to who cares about their credit score, who cares about their reputation, who cares about, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Your higher end house hack is a better demographic. It's drawing a better tenant base. Is essentially what we're getting at, right?
That's right. That's right. So in terms of, for the newbies, we're talking to the newbies. Management is scary, and you should be concerned. But that's why I'm advocating this my type of house hack, as likely the best option for you to put your foot in the door. Why? Because the management is going to be easier because of who you are attracting. Now, how you remodel the property is a function of who you want to attract. How the property is located, tease it up. What kind of things are people coming in for? Guess what? I'm into luxury. So there's a lot of vacation traffic, a lot of employment traffic, a lot of sports events traffic, a lot of corporate events traffic. Because this is where these people want to be. So this is where I want to buy. I want to be there too because I'm just like them. I want the nicer things in life. But by default, by being here, I'm able to attract them. Okay? So in other words, I'm able to attract somebody who would spend $250 if they had to in order to get what they needed. But they would give me $80 because why not get a discount? Because my stuff is just as good as the stuff that would cost $250. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, right.
But the point is, they would absolutely, in lieu of compressing themselves, in lieu of being any kind of uncomfortable and not getting exactly what they want, they got the money. They will spend more, much more, to get exactly what they want. But given the option to give me a fraction and still get exactly what they want, they would, of course, do that. But that's who I want to work with, is the person who has the capacity to spend what they need to in order to get what they feel they deserve.
Right,
the problem is, go ahead.
You really have guarded your time and your resources and your energy here by attracting a good tenant base, having lower management, and still hedging your risk and being able to, rent out part of your home and help pay for itself. So all around, you've really looked at your time and your resources valuable. That's exactly right.
Not only that, but, you have an option of a long-term tenant versus vacation rental. And look, I've done plenty of evictions to know that those can get testy. And given the option as a homeowner, I'm not here advocating vacation rental as a business model. I am not even convinced I like it as a standalone business model. I like it as part of another strategy. If you own a building and you want to make 1 unit, 2 units, that's fine because you're underwriting your overhead elsewhere. But I'm not convinced vacation rental is the best business. The overhead is very high. The problem is, this is a single-family house. I would be living here anyhow. I would be paying all of the overhead anyhow. So I am absorbing all of the overhead, which gives me a hell of an advantage on my competition. Okay? And in this sense, this is my home. If somebody does come for a week, for 2 weeks, and I do happen not to like them, hasn't happened yet, but if I do happen not to like them, guess what? They're gone in a week, and I never, ever, ever have to see them. There's no evictions. I don't have to go through that nonsense. Do I really want that kind of permanency in my own house? No, I don't. I want to pick and choose. And if I do make a mistake, it's an easy out. Jake, do you think this goes like a mile toward hedging risk?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, everything about this strategy, everything that I'm propagating, this is all about minimizing risk. Now, as far as income, dude, I got people booking right now for $80 a night plus. I could rent this. This is 134 square foot. This is why I'm saying it works so much better than a duplex. You buy a duplex, you've got two 1,400 square foot units. Guess what? Somebody moves out next door, you got to repaint the whole 1,400 square foot unit. There's a lot of mechanicals there to break, to go wrong. Mine is a 134 square foot casita. How many things do you think can go wrong in a 134 square foot casita? How long does it take? I haven't tried to repaint it, but when I do, is it going to take any more than 2 hours?
Well, that's really small. When you were describing your home, I was envisioning, half of a home almost, but this is very small. And then also something that I just now realized, Ben, is you're renting this out on a short-term basis. You don't have a long-term tenant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, because long-term basis, that's a lot of liability. This is, again, you know how we started talking about rent versus buying, and you said, hey, Ben, you think absolutely the other way, the opposite way from everybody? This is another element where this is true.
Well, yeah, I just chuckled because it caught me off guard when you say, oh, a long-term tenant is a liability. Well,
I'm going to explain this.
It's a little counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive. Most things that make money are counterintuitive. Welcome to the real world. How
all right,
money is made.
We're ready for a lesson.
So here it goes. It's called, first of all, well, there's two parts. First of all, I touched already. In a long-term rental situation, if you don't like somebody, if they stop paying you, you have to evict them. Okay? So right away, you're picking up economic losses, potentially. So you have to budget for them. You have to underwrite for them. Secondly, there's a principle, VOM, velocity of money. Something that happens with the economy when the money moves faster is that everything inflates faster. It's really called velocity of money. So in 2008, basically what happened, banks stopped lending, the money froze up, the money quit moving through the economy, and everything froze up. And that's just like your engine freezing up. Car can't go. You can press gas pedal all you want, or you can press the accelerator, in my case, in the Tesla, but same deal. Electricity can't freeze up. It can't stop. Oil can't stop. Things have to be moving. So money, they have this concept, economists have this concept, velocity of money. The faster the money moves, the better. I describe it in the book this way. Imagine yourself standing in a little stream or river, stream, whatever, and you are a mesh filter. And it's a stream of money. And most of it either goes around your filter or goes through your filter. But your filter does catch some of that money in the stream, and it falls to your feet. Okay? There are only two ways to improve the efficiency, or I shouldn't say efficiency, to improve how much money your filter can catch. Either you have to be better, you as a filter have to become more refined at catching more money, or the stream needs to move faster so that per second, per minute, more money flowing by you and through you. And that would also create more money at your feet caught by your filter. So velocity of money that's just a very crude kind of, broad stroke imagery for you. But what happens with vacation rentals is incredibly heightened velocity of money. Instead of paying me once per month, somebody's paying me every night, and they're booking, for 7 nights, for 10 nights, for 30 nights, for, whatever. Somebody just booked 30 nights. But by and large, this is mathematically why vacation rentals generate such a higher top line. The trick is that they also cost more to maintain. You have a lot more traffic. You have a lot more wear and tear. Now, not me, because of the kind of unit I have, and I discussed that in detail in the book, but if you have a duplex and it's 1,400 square feet and you try to Airbnb it, you're going to be able to host 7 people. Do you think there's going to be wear and tear?
Oh,
Do you think there's going to be
certainly.
running toilets? Do you think there's going to be running faucets? Do you think there's going to be broken fixtures?
Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
think there's going to be markers and things on the wall? Right?
Right, very
So-
true.
So even though you have increased velocity of money and increased income potential, you also have much higher costs associated with it. So it's very unclear whether a standalone vacation rental at today's prices is something that makes sense. But as part of a house hack, it's fantastic. I mean, Jake, my mortgage, I don't know, $1,700 for principal and interest. Somebody just booked the entire month of February for that.
Wow, that's it's very powerful when you can get to that point.
And you do. It's a function of location and a function of what you have. Now listen to what I'm telling you. Where I am, a 134 square foot casita with a little kitchenette and a little gorgeous bathroom, 134 square feet for $1,700 of cash flow. Do you know how hard you're going to have to work on that fourplex to get anywhere near that cash flow?
Yes, it would take a tremendous amount more work.
It would take work, but you can't buy it. You can't get it. I mean, if you buy it for cash, yeah, okay. But if you have a mortgage, you're not seeing that kind of cash flow. So as new investors, you are looking at real estate as a way to provide supplemental revenue so you don't have to rely on your W-2, and you can then build your life around that revenue instead. House hacking does that. It does it in one shot. Instead of having you buy a single family and an investment property whereby the cash flow from investment property bridges into paying for your single family, it's one and the same, which means you have one set of property taxes, one set of everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense, Ben.
And the next piece is, and I discuss this and I talk about this with numbers in the book, and this is where I take a playbook right out of Cardone. If I'd have bought a property for, $150,000 less than what I paid, the location would have been such that it would have capped my income potential so much lower that the property, the delta, would actually have cost me more to live in a lesser house in a lesser location. So everybody tells you to tighten your belt because that's how you get away. But mathematically, it doesn't work. Mathematically, by having a more desirable asset that more people are willing to pay more money for, works out better, at least in this case. It's actually costing me less to live in a more luxurious home than it would have had I tried to buy a less expensive home.
Once again, one of those counterintuitive things that people just don't think about, which, like you said, is how you make money by doing counterintuitive things. So, great.
This is exactly it. This is exactly it. And I drill this in the book. I drill this message as much as possible. And,
Yep.
when you reached out and you said, hey, what do you think about a podcast? I checked you out and I saw, I only saw one podcast with Burke. And I said, okay, that's fine. Let's tell Jake we'll go on. Brian Burke.
Brian's a good guy.
Brian Burke is a friend of mine. He is one of the most, let me take a step back. Arthur Schopenhauer, great German philosopher, has, I believe it's him, I'm pretty sure it's him, has a quote. Talent is hitting a target that no one else can hit. Genius is hitting a target that no one else can see. Brian Burke, I've been privileged to really understand his business model as it relates to multifamily, to understand, and I'm sure there's more I would need to learn than what I already know, but I know enough to know that his concept, his method of underwriting and how he does it, absolute brilliant. Just brilliant. I mean, dude, 2 days ago, it's funny. You reached out and said, let's do a podcast. I said, yes. The same day I got an email from a guy that spoke to me about a month prior. The email went, hey, I decided to give $50,000 to Burke and Pet. And that I was working on a project, and he was discussing with me. And the thing is, if it's between me and Burke, and me and anybody else and Burke, give your money to Burke. But guys, if you are beginners and you are listening to Burke and you think you have a chance in hell, do a house hack. This is what you can do. What you can do at your level is work really, really hard to buy a fourplex, which is going to be nothing but a pain in your neck, or do a house hack my way that improves your quality of life for less money and gets you further than that fourplex could ever get you. It's like I love this. You know, Brian is brilliant, but, you know, to reach for where his brain vibrates is just like a ludicrous proposition, right? I try my best to understand what he's thinking, and sometimes I get close.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian's a really smart guy, and he knows what he's doing for sure. But what you're saying here, it's so actionable and easy for somebody just getting started to do what you're implementing, or to do what you're saying.
And the thing is, I'm telling you, I'm proving it to you with numbers in this book. You don't have to skimp on yourself and on your lifestyle. In fact, the formula works better if you don't. You'll save more money. Obviously, you know, I'm not paying for 100% of what it costs to live in this house, but I'm paying about 50% of what I paid in rent when I first got here.
Wow.
And I'm sitting on a house that's going to be, this house, listen, I am 6 months into it, 7 months of pre-booking. I'm sitting at $9,200 of cash flow after fees. I am going to be finishing out the year, I'm sure, somewhere in the $15,000 to $16,000 price range. And that means I'm living here for less than a good apartment would cost me.
That's phenomenal, Ben.
I'm renting my apartment in Ohio for more money than was costing me to live in this house.
Well, Ben, you've certainly found a strategy that's working for you. It's easily implemented by people just getting started, and you've taken all these principles and learning lessons and condensed them into a book that you've just released titled House Hacking, the only real estate investing strategy you need to build wealth, live for free or almost free, and make money through homeownership. So we'll certainly link that book in the show notes for people to look more into this, because like we said, there's so much to this strategy that it's not as simple as just, get a roommate, move in with a roommate, and rent it out. Although, principally, that's what it is. There's a lot that you have figured out through your course and through your experiences that you've shown in this book, right?
Right. And that wasn't okay with me. If I was going to, listen, I would pay the entire mortgage if I had to in order to achieve the lifestyle I want. But just like my guests who are coming here, who would pay $250 for a nice hotel room with granite tops and everything else, but they're paying me $85 a night because it's cheaper and it's just as good, and why not? And it's probably better located than most hotels. Okay? Just like them, I would pay this mortgage. This is convenient for my life. This is where my kids go to school. This is where all kinds of shopping is that we typically do. It just works for what I'm telling you is life design. What I'm telling you is start with what you want and then figure out how to gear it so it pays for itself. So house hacking is only one tool in the bag. There are many more tools in the bag. This book happens to be about house hacking, which means we're talking about the asset class of real estate, primary residence, okay? But the approach I discuss in the book, the view of life that I discuss in the book is applicable across the board.
Yeah, right. You've talked a lot about your reasons why and the philosophy behind why you're doing what you're doing. So really important to have those things figured out before you start implementing this action.
I agree.
All right, Ben, well, wrapping up here, we've got a lightning round, just a series of questions we'd like to fire at you, and you just answer from the hip. How does that sound?
Are you sure you want me to do that?
I think so.
You might have to edit some stuff out.
All right, we'll see how it goes then. All right, our first question we've got is, what was your biggest hurdle getting started in real estate investing, and how'd you overcome it?
Intellectual work. Read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people, and yes, bought courses as well.
Perfect. Do you have a personal habit that contributes to your success?
I aim higher.
Okay, that's simple enough and that's powerful.
What you think is what you are, Jake. I mean, habits is talking to the things that we do. Who cares about the things we do? What's important is what's in your head. What's important is what you think, because what you do is going to be a function of what you think. So you got to think, right?
Right.
So I think higher. I aim higher. I try to anyhow.
Awesome. All right. Do you have an online resource that you find valuable?
Two, biggerpockets.com.
Of course.
And the fastlaneforum.com.
The Fastlane Forum. Okay. All right, Ben, what book would you recommend to the listeners and why?
The book, aside for Robert Kiyosaki's book, the book that left an impression on me, real estate specific, is Nickerson's book. I can't remember exactly the title. I can't remember if it's Jack, but it's Nickerson is his last name. How I converted $5,000 into $1 million or something.
Okay.
Just opened my eyes. You'll find it if you look for it online. I don't think it's published anymore. It's an oldie but good.
Okay, perfect. I haven't heard of that one, so we'll certainly find it and link it up in the show notes for our listeners. All right, final question, Ben. If you were to give advice to your 20-year-old self to get started investing in real estate, what would it be?
Do a house hack.
How'd I know that was coming? Perfect. I think we know why. Yeah.
Yeah, because this house hack is making me more money than a 10-unit building I own. I mean, I'm serious with you guys, and I prove it to you in the book with numbers. What it would take for me, I'll do it for you right now. You got 2 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you've got $15,000 of annualized cash flow, if I were to replace that cash flow with income property, I would need to, I can't buy it for cash, so I would need some amount of leverage, let's say 75% commercial. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that would require me to maybe make a mortgage payment of about $2,500 a month. So I would need, in order to replace my just going, I'm doing the math real quick in my head, just going by my portfolio, what I know to be true, I would need, in order to replace $15,000 of cash flow, I would need a minimum of $40,000 to $45,000 of NOI. Well, go ahead and capitalize $45,000 of NOI at a 7 cap, which is a going cap rate today. Even if you capitalize as a 10 and you can't find 10 anyway, that's $450,000. In today's environment, you would have to spend $600,000. Well, what's 25% of $600,000? Yeah. That's the amount of cash I'd have to invest in order to generate that cash flow. Okay? And what's the management on what is likely going to be an 8 to 12 units look like? So what do you want? You want a little 134 square foot casita that attracts CFOs, retirees, and, people that don't require any management at all? Or do you want to manage a 10 unit with all the headache that, if you are a newbie, this is why I'm saying, and it's very simple in my mind, right now at today's prices in this cycle where we are, do a properly executed house hack. You're going to get ahead faster, easier than trying to become the next Brian Burke.
Absolutely. It's just such an easy strategy to implement for those starting out.
Absolutely.
All right, Ben. Well, you've certainly given us a lot of good advice today and some different perspectives on things, so we appreciate your time for that. As we're wrapping up here, where can our audience find more about you or connect with you if they have any further questions?
My website is www.justaskbenwhy.com. Justaskbenwhy.com.
Okay.
And my email is ben@justaskbenwhy.com. And you can email me straight through the website. And there's a lot of other different resources. I teach people what I do, which is no money down real estate. So there's a lot of resources, a lot of articles, a lot of resources.
Awesome. Well, that's www.justaskbenwhy.com. We'll link that website in the show notes. And Ben, we certainly appreciate your time coming on the show today. Look forward to next time.
Jake, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our episode today with Ben Leybovich. Ben has detailed exactly how he makes luxury house hacking work for him, and he shows you how you too can get started using this strategy. I hope you're getting value out of this show. For additional information and resources, visit www.jacobayers.com/podcast and check out this episode. As always, if you have any questions or comments or want to hear something specific or someone specific on this show, please let me know. Feel free to email me at info@jacobayers.com, contact me at www.jacobayers.com, or connect with me on Facebook at The Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom. Till next week, signing off, I'm your host, Jacob Ayers.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, providing you actionable content to build your real estate empire. Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, LLC, exclusively.